Lots going on with television. Big transition. What's going on? Tell us some of the big trends that you're seeing.
Good. Well, I think the big misperception is that Rome is falling, right? Well, I would say Rome's falling, but it's only falling one brick at a time, and it will be rebuilt as fast as it crumbles, right? I think very academically, television is in the midst of an industrial revolution. I've sort of talked about this before, right? But if you kind of take what an industrial revolution is in a macroeconomic sense, it's, hand tooled to automation, right? That's the elimination of the last mile or the truck roll. No need to wait for your set-top box or Comcast to show up. Procurers use data and technology to buy more efficiently and drive price down a commoditized price, right? Well, that's programmatic, is it not, right? And I think what is so interesting to me, actually having come from other industries that make stuff and do unsexy things like manufacture, is that many other industries have gone through this radical level of industrial disruption, and they've used systems and tools and platforms to connect their enterprise to combat it, right? And to survive and to thrive actually by connecting their enterprise. So I think it's one of the things we're focusing a lot on. I mean, the business of television is very interesting right now, right? We talk about sort of targetability and addressability and the campaign level, efficiency. But the reality is that the business of video, although we want television to be more like digital video, more addressable and targetable and measurable and all those things, the reality is that holistically, the video business and the television business are consolidating, and the purchasing power is sitting with TV buyers. So we're going to see that not only television, but digital video spend is consolidating, and to move the plurality of it 40 to 60% in the second quarter of every year. And that business cycle requires a much different set of tools and a different arsenal of sort of weaponry, if you will, to help broadcasters and programmers thrive in this new marketplace, in this new world.
So Ashley, what's happening with programmatic? We hear a lot about programmatic TV. Does that mean anything, or does it not mean anything, or what does it mean to you?
Well, I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors and jazz hands to distract in programmatic television and just programmatic overall right now. There's also a lot of bad behavior. And I think that's the most unfortunate thing. I mean, put like the challenges of viewability and, all fraud aside, like just in general, there's a lot of bad behavior. And that's why we see a rampant sort of, turnover of media reviews right now and lots of other things. The distrust is unfortunate right now in our marketplace. I think the programmatic has been challenged. Going back to the fact that we need to be thoughtful and mindful that programmatic emerged in display for very different reasons than video, right? It emerged in display because there was remnant inventory and we needed ways to make it more valuable. The way to do that was use data. And we saw that fundamentally there was more sell-through, therefore there was value creation for publishers. In video, the drive around programmatic, whether it's television or it's digital video, is around basically being able to buy on an audience basis. So using data to buy an audience, not an impression or a GRP, right? But I think the challenge is that the content owners, specifically the broadcasters and programmers in this conversation, haven't actually been afforded the opportunity to harness the power of their first-party systems and the myriad of data that sits within their infrastructure to be able to get that productization up funnel or upstream, if you will, at the source of where the content is created, to be able to deliver a better product package and then therefore drive greater price and revenue as a result, right? The evolution of the programmatic value chain has been about middle guys coming in, perhaps disrupting or adding value and making that incremental lift and capturing that. And I think our perspective at Furious is this is about empowering, at the source and really putting the power back in the enterprise of the first-party content owners by tapping into their systems and their data. And so I think that programmatic has had its time. The great thing is it's taught us how to use data and content, to drive better performance around content and better investment for an ROI for brands and advertisers. But I think the next wave is about automation. And that's just kind of in our first implementations, what we're seeing a lot of the value creation is, when you connect these systems and these enterprise to deliver better products to market, products being your video advertising portfolio, right? And how you bundle them and package them. You actually end up also packaging and connecting the enterprise as well and the business sort of workflow within it. And that's where we're going to see this big white, elephant in the room, which is the fact that digital is probably a 5x cost to service and to operate than television. Programmatic is a 10x. We're going to start to see the ability to chip away at those kind of multiples so that the cost of running the businesses in these new emerging platforms diminishes, and actually it's more opportunistic and becomes more lucrative for content owners, which will result downstream in more value creation for the brands and advertisers with whom they work.
So Ashley, we're going to organize our big conference in November,
I know,
the Future
I'm
of
so
Television,
excited. Yes.
and a big focus of that, not the only focus, will be about addressable TV and what's going on, which is sort of still growing. We may see more, perhaps, with AT&T and DirecTV, where broadcasters, cable operators can actually deliver ads to specific households through the cable box, through the satellite box.
Yes.
How is that going to unfold? Will it unfold? What are your thoughts about that over the next year?
Well, you know, traditional television sort of is encumbered in ways different than digital, right? With the Cable Act and things like that. We've talked a lot about the potential of the sort of Time Warner Comcast merger, and that fell apart, and now what's going to happen with Charter and then Direct and AT&T. I actually think the T-Mobile sort of Dish partnership is really interesting, right? Because when we think about the ability to connect the device graph and to target on mobile and the level of individual confidence we have, or confidence we have around individual data on a mobile device, I think that is potentially equally as disruptive or opportunistic for the industry as set-top box level data. Look, the eventuality is that in some way we are going to target at a set-top box level, right? I think one of the problems is that we have this fundamental incongruency in the market, right? The opportunity that is afforded by addressable, sort of targetable level data, specifically on IP-enabled set-top boxes, is immense, the opportunity that it creates. But the reality is that the sort of transformation of the businesses and the sales force and how the business is transacted, how television is bought, how it's sold, what players need to emerge in the middle, right? And how actually the suppliers, the broadcasters, operators, and content owners catch up so they can service that business is really what I think is holding us back. I mean, this is really about human behavior, right? It's not really about what technology can allow. The reality is that if the true demand was there and the economic upside and incentive was, we would be there a lot faster. But it's the same reason the bundle hasn't really unbundled in a purest sense, and these skinny bundles are kind of just farce and a little bit of smoke and mirrors, like Comcast Stream, right? We will continue to perpetuate the old media traditions of television and the business models until they don't serve us anymore. So the reality is that I think we're a bit away from true addressability, and specifically on an individual household level, we will leverage the power of IP level set-top box data to target. I think it will continue to be at an aggregated level of zip +4 or whatever. It'll be by the marrying of third-party data sets, but it's a long time until I know that I'm reaching Mr. Plesser and and his family at their address for an advertiser, because once you've opened those gates, you can't close them, and no one knows what that eventuality is and what will unfold. And so until then, I think we're going to proceed with caution at a slow, controlled cadence, and I actually think that's in the best interest of our industry.